Interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer, engenheira,
pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
The Flashing Girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Oh, Mr. Sheffield, a podcast about The Nanny, the 90s hit sitcom starring Fran Drescher. I am Sean Pasquale here with...
Toria Sheffield.
Womp, 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 womp. It's your favorite duo.
Well, hey, appropriately titled episode, A Fine Friendship.
That's right. That's how I like to think of us. It's a fine friendship. It's
fine.
It's not great. It's not the best, but it's fine.
It's fine.
It's serviceable.
I was just about to say it's serviceable.
And that's why we're fine friends.
Finish each other's sandwiches. All right. It is what it needs to be.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah, but this was season 2, episode 19. And it is the episode where Fran befriends a male nanny who she thinks is gay, but big reveal, he's straight.
And Lee Shalat directed this one. Lee Shalat I don't know, dude. And then this one had there were so many writers on this episode. 3 people get story by credit: Kirsten Wenzel, Bill Marich, and Rich Ross. And then Eileen O'Hare is given teleplay credit. So she actually wrote the episode. And we covered another episode of hers. She did The Wine Cellar.
Oh.
Yeah, and then she writes a couple more later on and stuff, but she wrote the Wine Cellar one, which we both really liked. So
yeah, I've been waiting for this episode to come around for quite a while, just because I feel like we slightly dived into it when we talked to Matt Baum in our season 1 finale. Because if you've watched his YouTube video, Fran's Fine with the Gays, this is one that's featured pretty heavily in his, in putting forth his viewpoint that this show is very revolutionary and it's very blasé attitude towards just being gay. It's not that big a deal, and it is in no way like the butt of the joke in any way.
No, it's not. And it's because the reveal, it would be the opposite. I feel like other shows prior to this, would be like, oh my God, I thought he was into me the whole time and he's gay. And this is like, no, he's gay. Like, why would he be into me? And then it's just like not a big deal. She loves that she loves him,
Yeah. Yeah. And then we'll get to it, but there was a really not only hilarious, but I thought very progressive reaction from Mr. Sheffield in a particular scene later that I'm excited to get to. So we basically set up in this episode that Gracie has a friend coming over, Willie, and his nanny brings him over.
Willie.
I knew a Willie growing up, but I think he goes by Will now as an adult.
Yes, he does. He
You don't think little Willie Fitzgerald still goes by Willie? So basically this male nanny, he's very, very handsome. And, Fran greets him very briefly, and then he goes into the other room. And Niles is basically like, hey, like, Miss Fine, are you all right? A very, very handsome man just walked in, and, you did not have your usual over-the-top reaction, of being completely interested. Yeah. And she literally, she's in her bathrobe. She has a newspaper out in front of him. She very casually, she's like, Niles, the man is clearly gay. And they she
goes, he's either gay or a priest with a solar plex.
Yeah. She's completely confident in that. And then to prove her point, she yells into the other room, Kurt, who is Carol Channing's understudy in Hello, Dolly? And without missing a beat, he yells in the answer. And she kind of just turns the newspaper another page, totally content in having proved her point.
They come back. So in the opening scene, we established that they're going to a baseball game. They're all going to play baseball.
And by they, yeah.
Mr. Sheffield, Cece, Grace, Maggie, and Brighton are all going. And I actually wanted to talk about this scene because they're all wearing matching purple sweaters and red hats. And I think like that's their team uniform, but it's so weird because they're wearing like the preppiest looking sweater. It's like doesn't look like they're going to play baseball. It's so weird. It looks like they're going to walk in like a park in a Victorian painting.
Well, yeah, they have this matching outfit, and there was this funny little beat that I actually appreciated because Mr. Sheffield comes in his sweatshirt and he's in blue jeans, and Fran's like, "Oh, Mr. Sheffield, I don't think I've ever seen you in jeans before." And she's like, wait, is there a rip on the seat of those pants? And he kind of turns around so she can get a look. She just ogles him, and then she goes, nope, you're fine. And she has this sort of like devious, lecherous look on her face where she clearly just wanted to look at his butt. But the thing is, I was like, I like that little role reversal because usually in a lot of sitcoms, it definitely would have been the guy having his little lecherous moment and like tricking the woman into getting a view of her, rear end. But, I love how unapologetically just like sneaky Fran is, and then that look of satisfaction on her face.
Is that the female gaze?
Yeah. It was a nice female gaze moment. It was I just was like, you know what, refreshing and funny. So we then cut to a scene where it's Fran and Kurt are just kind of like catching up and talking, nanny to nanny, and the kids are upstairs. They've gone to sleep for a nap, and I noticed that there was a lot of very timely, but no longer timely NYPD Blue references.
Yes.
Because as they're talking back and forth, we established that Fran is very, very comfortable with this guy. She's like, can you believe, so-and-so left the show. Oh, I wish I had a body like so-and-so. And the two of them are just, very, very friendly together. And you get the sense it's because in her mind, he is basically like a girlfriend, even though he's a guy. And then this was actually a very funny little C plot that maybe it's even the B plot, but Gracie and Willie come down the stairs after their nap. And
wait, hold on. So I hated that.
Really?
Yeah, I thought this was the dumbest B plot I've ever seen to anything. It is the biggest stretch. Like it was such a big stretch. It should be a yoga pose called the nanny.
No,
I
literally wrote this was such a relatable kid moment. I know kids that this happened to where they like thought they were going to get pregnant by like walking on a beach because they overheard like an older relative say like, oh, well, that's what happens when you go walking on the beach after dark. And then they were terrified of going outside on the beach when their family would go on vacations after it got dark.
You know someone for real that has that story?
Yes.
Was that you?
No.
Do you believe this person?
Yes.
All right.
I mean, it's just like it's like I literally just told you a few weeks ago, I thought I was going to turn into a turtle when someone told me I would become a teenager. Like,
but that is true, Toria. We're both turtles right now. Look at Mitch McConnell.
But no, like my life up until about 9 years old was riddled with misunderstandings like this. Wow. Not all of them sexual in nature, but just like completely misunderstanding the world around me.
The other thing I think you may have skipped over is, I guess it wasn't my favorite line. There's a scene, so like right sandwiched in there, the family comes back from their ball game, and there's this line where Brighton goes, "I made it to first base," and then Gracie goes, "I did too."
That comes right
after this? Okay.
That comes right after. So basically, the kids come down the stairs, they've woken up from their nap and they want to go see the Lion King. And Fran's like, sorry, like you guys are too late for the Lion King. Like that was at 4. And they go, but it's okay. We're going to watch some soap operas. So they sit down to watch these soap operas and Kurt's like, this is a very funny line. He's like, oh, I haven't seen this one in 7 months. Catch me up. And Fran goes, well, they're still at Cynthia's party, which is such a great soap opera joke where it's like, it lurches from week to week. But so
storylines just would drag on for years. On
yes. And she said something, she was like, oh, well, and she's late. So, she's like, she and Jeremy slept together and now she's late. So P.S. she's pregnant. At which point Gracie's eyes become like saucers in her face. Like she looks panicked. She grabs Will and pulls him aside and she's like, oh my God. She's like, we slept together and then we were late for the movie. I'm pregnant, because she has interpreted Fran's little, aside to Kurt as when you are late for something and you sleep with somebody else, that's how you get pregnant. Which again, I thought relatable, but apparently Sean was born knowing it all, ladies and gentlemen. Never been humbled a day in his life.
I think when I was old enough to know what babies were, my parents explained like how it kind of works. Like I'm sure they didn't go into detail, but I knew that like it didn't just happen from osmosis, or like from being late to an event or something. That just felt like a skip. But I mean, I guess if kids do, I mean, look, if you're telling me to believe that kids are dumb, you don't got to sell me. So
right. Well, and so that's this little subplot is Gracie and this little boy now think they're going to have a baby together. And he's like, I better get a job. I thought actually, Gracie, she's really, really come into her own as an actress. Like I honestly think she's, right. She and Brighton are great. And not to be rude, but I think the weakest link might be Maggie. But
yeah, for sure. Well, but that's also, I feel like partially the writing, because like literally every week it's just like Maggie is into a different boy, or it's about a boy. Like she has there was one week where I think she was a vet like a vegan or something.
Yes, yeah.
And then it never gets brought up again. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah,
to be fair, literally at 8 years old, Gracie is given more to do than this like 16-year-old actress. But so that's when Mr. Sheffield and the others come home, and we find out that A, they lost, and B, that, yes, as you were alluding to earlier, Maggie goes, at least I got to first base. And she says this in front of her father, too.
Dude, I have that note. She says it in front of her dad, and he doesn't even react.
Well, and Brighton goes, Maggie, you didn't even leave the dugout. And she's like, I know. Meaning she clearly like kissed a boy on the other team. But yeah, maybe Mr. Sheffield doesn't know bases. Maybe he has no idea.
Oh, maybe.
So then we have this great scene where it's clear that Fran and Kurt have been like spending a ton of time together, like going to movies, going out for coffee, just becoming besties. And they get back to the mansion, and they go upstairs to Fran's room because Fran announces that, he's going to help her decide what clothes she needs to return. And she even says to Mr. Sheffield as she's going up, she's like, I know you have, your rules with, guys, upstairs. And then he's like, oh no, he's like, Kurt's much more like your friend Val, Miss Fine. Like, I don't have any problem with this. So then we actually go up into the room, and Fran's literally just in a bra as she's trying on outfits, and Kurt is walking her through like, that's great, that's not great.
Yeah.
Until ... I was gonna let you.
Yeah, well, that's when yeah, so that's when she brings up
left me hanging.
She brings up tiramisu, and he's like, what's tiramisu? And like that's her moment where she's like, oh my God, you're not gay.
Well, but also he's like, correct. No, but even before that, the reason she even thinks to ask him that is like a test is he kind of comes up behind her to help her unzip. Oh yeah,
he starts kissing her and stuff. Right. I forgot that happens first. Yeah, so then she's like, oh my God. She goes, you're a flaming heterosexual.
Yeah, she's like, you're straight? And she's like, does your mother know? She is so indignant. And she's literally like, I can't believe, I thought you were straight. She's like, you've seen me without makeup. Like I bought, I don't remember the brand, but she basically says she bought laxatives in front of him. Mm-hmm. She's like, I told you how I treat my yeast infections. And she's literally just like completely like, losing it when she realizes all that she revealed in front of this straight, attractive man. And then he kind of just like takes her into his arms, and he's like, well, if you liked me when you thought I was gay, you're going to love me now that I'm straight. And he like kisses her, and she still is just in a bra, at which point Mr. Sheffield walks by because the door is open.
Yeah.
And he gasps, and he runs into the room, and he tears them apart. And at first you think he's going to be upset with Kurt, or maybe upset with Fran for like, allowing this to happen, or that he literally goes, he goes, oh my God. He's like, Miss Fine, what are you doing? Leave this poor man alone. So he clearly thinks that like Fran has like basically like molested this gay man and is like pawing all over him. And he's like, Miss Fine, he's like, did you ever even think that he might have a significant other? Which I was like, wow, so progressive on Mr. Sheffield's part. He is so indignant on behalf of this man that he thinks, that is a huge transgression on multiple levels for Fran to have attempted to kiss him. And then that's when, Fran has this great line where she's like, Kurt, you better leave because Mr. Sheffield might hurt himself jumping to conclusions. So Kurt like politely exits. And this is when we have this like very, very kind of bold and funny physical comedy exchange between Fran and Mr. Sheffield. Because
they start to have a conversation and then she realizes she's still just wearing a bra and like her skirt. And so she like, oh my God, why did you let me stand around like this? And then she tries to put on a shirt, but it's like a tight shirt. And then she gets sort of stuck in it. And then Mr. Sheffield's she's like, help me. And then he starts to try to help her. And then they end up falling backwards on the bed. And he's trying to, trying to get it on her. And then Niles walks by the room at that moment. And just like,
that was what made this amusing to awesome is when this Niles literally walks by and then he jerks his head around and is peering around the door frame. And meanwhile, they're saying, she's like, I'm so hot. And he's like, I can't do it standing up. We have to get on the bed. And they're, making all these double entendres, but just in terms of trying to get this shirt off her. And then they realize that Niles has been watching the whole thing. And he goes, if you let me tell Miss Babcock about this, I'll work for free for a year.
It's a great bit.
Yes.
Really good.
A lot of fun, goofy choreography, I'm sure, to make that all happen.
Chegou a melhor parte do podcast. É hora de provar a melhor Coca-Cola. A Coca-Cola sem açúcar. O sabor irresistível da Coca-Cola, sem açúcar e igualmente refrescante. Coca-Cola sem açúcar. A melhor escolha.
And then we cut to the next day and it's Cece and Mr. Sheffield's office. And it's interesting because he's clearly very preoccupied with Kurt now. He's the thing is, we've established earlier in the episode that Kurt isn't a struggling actor who works as a nanny by day. And Mr. Sheffield is poring over his CV. And he's like, I knew that Kurt had caps. And Cece's sort of like, what are you doing? Why are you obsessing over this random man? But we get the sense that there's definitely some jealousy going on.
For sure. Yeah.
And Niles says something rude to Cece and she's basically mentions that she's in charge of his retirement plan and goes, Orange County bonds, which I was like, what does that even mean? I had to Google it. I guess during this, there was even an LA Times article about this line.
Yes.
Because it was basically popular sitcom The Nanny makes dig at Orange County, because I guess Orange County had a lot of natural disasters and general just unpleasant things happening for a couple of years in the 90s. So it was famously it's real estate property or prices were going down and it was no longer becoming the destination place. But I was like, wow, truly had no idea what that was about.
I did this, I went on the same journey and I came to the same conclusion where I was like, wow, talk about maybe the deepest of deep cuts where there's not even there's not even a Wikipedia article on it where you're like, oh, this was an event that happened. It's just people were shit talking Orange County at the time and the nanny jumped on the pile. But they just kicked Orange County while it was down, which, to be fair, meh.
Yeah, I mean, no complaints here. But
yeah, so basically the joke is that OC bonds, Orange County bonds would have been bonds in investing his pension money in the city, which at the time would have been essentially junk bonds. They would have been worth nothing because the city at the time had declared bankruptcy. So that's what that joke is. But I also had to look it up and it took 15 to 20 minutes of reading, so much so that I think I missed the next 2 minutes of the episode because until I finally paused it and was like, oh, I'm not watching anymore. Now I'm just reading about Orange County.
or Orange County 30 years ago. But so it's also revealed in this scene that Fran and Kurt have a date that night. And a little later, Niles and Cece are in the kitchen, and this was just great because Niles is writing something down on a piece of paper, and he's like, he's like, there's something I'm not supposed to tell you. Read this. And he hands her the paper, and it clearly says that, like, you know, he caught Mr. Sheffield and Fran in bed together the night before, at which point Cece literally screams, "I want to die," throws herself down on the counter, and Niles goes, "Oh no, don't do anything rash," and slips a knife into her purse, which is so dark.
It's so dark.
But which is just cruel. But so she leaves, and then we have a pretty big scene in terms of emotional beats, but it's something we've seen before, but we've never, it's a sort of repeat beat, but you know, we never get tired of it, where Mr. Sheffield comes into the kitchen and he's basically kind of like pacing back and forth. And he's like, Niles, I don't understand it. You know, ostensibly Kurt is perfect for Miss Fine, but why do I find this situation so annoying? And Niles does his classic Niles metaphor where Mr. Sheffield picks up an apple and he's eating it. And Niles goes, "Ah, Mr. Sheffield, that was the last apple." And Mr. Sheffield's like, "Oh, did you want it?" And Niles goes, "Well, I guess I didn't realize I really wanted it until somebody else sunk his teeth into it." And Mr. Sheffield, as usual, is like super oblivious. And he's like, "My God, man, eat a bloody pear," and walks out. and then Fran walks in, and it's basically the exact same encounter, but it was kind of funny because it's getting a little meta that Niles is the guy that is always saying this to them, because Fran basically, she's like, like, I'm supposed to go out with Kurt, but like, I'm not really feeling it. She's like, I don't know. There's just something missing. And then she picks up a pear and starts eating it. And almost like as if he's put upon and like weary of this, he's like, "Oh, is that the last pear?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, did you want it?" And he's like, "I guess I didn't realize how much I wanted it until someone else had it." And then she's like, "You snooze, you lose," and walks out. So again, like, always falls on deaf ears when Niles tries to point out the obvious.
It's cute. I think it's it makes the most sense that Niles would be the one doing that, because the kids wouldn't be invested at all in Mr. Sheffield and Fran hooking up, and Cece's not going to do it. So it ends up being like, well, Niles is always there, and he's seeing this constant tension between them, and he's just trying to like nudge them in the right direction. Yeah.
Although it would be really cute if Gracie started to psychoanalyze them. I hope it goes there sometime soon.
True.
And then, so that's sort of the resolution of that. The resolution just being that, like, you know, Fran's, you know, she amicably has parted ways with Kurt.
Yep.
And, you know, but because something didn't feel quite right. And Mr. Sheffield, you know, just, it wasn't sitting right with him either. Neither of them really know why, but like nothing's really changed other than that. And then we get I thought it was an adorable little ending to the Gracie pregnant subplot where Fran comes in and Gracie and Willie are sitting there, and Willie's like, 9 minus 7. And she's like, 2. And he's like, "Oh God, 3 seconds. It's happening." And she's like, "What are you kids doing?" And he's like, "We're timing her subtractions." Like, clearly kids, you know, wanting to time contractions, which, I mean, I know you didn't believe this stuff happened, but that's exactly the kind of stuff that I used to mix up when I was a kid. Like, I literally was at the table once where I said we were learning about organisms in biology. And my dad had to say, yes, organisms. And I literally went, same thing. Like, you know, kids are dumb. They really are. But you know,
we knew a girl when I was growing up that choked at dinner once on her food. And then when it cleared up, she was like, "Oh, it must have went down the wrong turnpike."
Yeah.
They were like, "What?"
Yeah, that happens all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, super cute resolution. Fran assures them they're not pregnant.
But they're not pregnant. And then we didn't really mention there's a weird runner where basically the episode opens, and in the cold open of the episode, at one point Fran's like, "Hold on, I'm on the phone with my mother," but she's not on the phone. And then she walks over to the phone, picks it up, and she's like, "Uh-huh." and then she just sets it down as if her mom has been talking continuously without Fran listening at all. And then the post-credit scene is just Fran comes downstairs, picks up the phone and goes, "Really, Ma?" And then puts it down again.
Yes, because clearly her mother talks so nonstop and for so long that you can just walk away from the conversation and only intermittently make a reaction sound,
really
and she has
that.
no idea.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, how Sylvia sometimes gets some of the best jokes without even being in the episode.
Yep.
Yeah, which is like shows what strength of a character they've created.
It's fantastic. I mean, they didn't really create a character. It's just it just shows the strength of a Jewish mom. I think it's time for segments.
Yeah.
And now segments.
So segments.
Yeah, no, I think we should move on to segments.
We can move on to our segments.
And now segments.
Segments with Sean and Toria. There was this really funny little throwaway joke where Fran mentions that she has been taping Days of Our Lives, and she's been taping over old cassettes in the house. And she goes, yeah, like I just taped over this one. Brighton Learns to Walk. I wonder what that movie's about. Like clearly it's taping over these treasured family photos, family videos. And then I loved this Columbo joke. Basically, I don't know if you ever watched Columbo with your parents growing up, but it famously stars Peter Falk in the role he's absolutely most known for.
Probably,
and at Fran goes, when she's complaining to Niles about why, she's just not really sure why she's not feeling it with Kurt. She's like, maybe it's because, we already know each other so well and the mystery's gone. It's like when you watch an episode of Columbo, you figure out who did it in the first 10 minutes and then you spend the whole rest of the episode just trying to figure out which is the glass eye, which because Peter Falk famously had a glass eye, which I mean.
Just like Sandy Duncan.
Yes. And every time it was on TV when I was growing up, one of my parents would invariably go, he has a glass eye.
That's what my dad would do every time we watched Barney the Dinosaur and Sandy Duncan came on. My dad would go, "She's got a glass eye." It's like, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Now that's all I can think about. I like when Fran's crossing through the living room at one point and the kids are talking about the child that they think they're pregnant with. And Fran just walks through the room and kind of overhears it, and she just goes, "Boy, those kids, can those kids play house or what?"
Yes. She thinks they are playing this hyper realistic, dysfunctional family drama.
I like that line a lot. And then also when she breaks up with Kurt, she tells Mr. Sheffield and he goes, "Well, did you at least part amicably?" And she goes, "No, it was friendly."
Yes. Which I actually have this note where I'm like, I know, the show as a whole is clearly pushing that Fran and Mr. Sheffield are perfect for each other, but I think it's one of those in real life they're not perfect for each other. No. In real life, she and Kurt are the fact that you would be with someone who doesn't even know what that means, and they're just I really don't know what they would talk about other than the children.
Yes,
but it's still adorable. But no, in real life, Kurt really was much more perfect for her.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. No, I guess he was. You're right. But then she got bored.
I mean, he was. Yeah, then she got bored. I guess you're right. You need those differences to keep it interesting.
Yeah, opposites attract, baby.
Rich and poor.
Jew and goy. Did you notice that Niles at one point is asleep reading a copy of Better Butler magazine?
I literally have just Niles reading Better Butler as one of my other favorite moments.
I mean, he could have just as easily been reading Good Housekeeping, which is a real magazine, but
no, just the idea that these butlers, it's their whole
identity.
They're so invested in the trade.
Yeah.
Want to move on to Yiddish?
Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't clock any actual Yiddish.
There wasn't any.
But I did a little bit of a deep dive. And
Uh-oh.
I didn't know this. Did you know that the word fagala
Yes.
is a real Yiddish word, not just made up. I thought it was made up for Robin Hood Men in Tights.
No, really?
Because I had
So
no
funny.
idea. Because there was a scene. You see, hey, another childhood misunderstanding moment.
Yeah.
There's this scene in Robin Hood Men in Tights, which is a Mel Brooks movie, where he plays Friar Tuck, but I don't think he's the friar. I think he's a rabbi. Rabbi Tuck.
Yeah, he's a moil. No, he's a moil. He does circumcisions.
Oh yes. And he comes across Robin Hood, and Carrie Elways is like I'm Robin Hood, and these are my merry men, and Mel Brooks just goes Vegala, like basically asking if they're all gay together.
Yeah.
And I just thought, it was like a made up Yiddish word for a slur for gay men. But no, Fagel is really a word. It's the diminutive of Feigl, which means little bird. And it was meant to be like a disparaging description of a man who was kind of, fey and little
effeminate.
and weak and a little bird. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I had no idea.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a slur, but it's slur enough that I don't use it,
Well, and they do say that they think that is where the actual slur came from.
Yeah.
So I really I learned something.
So bummer that Yiddish invented that word.
I
You know what I mean?
I know.
That sucks.
And in terms of nanny trivia, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Fran Drescher became an ordained minister with the Universal Life Church Monastery so that she could legally officiate LGBT wedding ceremonies.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love an ordained queen.
So the Fran or the CC, I don't know about you, but I've done what Fran has done several times, where I befriended a guy and got very comfortable with a guy who I assumed was gay, only to find out he was straight.
Me too.
You have?
I've befriended so many dudes only to find out that they're straight. Then I'm like, boo. No, I don't think I've ever. It doesn't really work the same in reverse, right?
Say,
it's not like I'm like, oh, I finally met my lesbian best friend, and then I'm like, oh no, she's into me.
Yeah. That's true.
True.
But I will say that the thing that really does resonate with this is I always feel like everybody is like their most charming selves when they're their authentic selves and when they're not really wondering or thinking about how they come across. So I've always found that ironically, I end up attracting people when I think there's no chance that
Me too.
I might get them.
Me too.
And so I've been in this situation kind of like Fran, but when there's actually someone who I'm like, oh God, they're really cute. I wonder if maybe they, then I act like a freak. So
Me too. I think the reason Elizabeth and I hit it off was because I just didn't think that I had any chance at all. So I was just like, whatever, like I'll just be friends with this person and she seems fun, and then all of a sudden she was interested in me and I was like, whoa. And I've been doing consistently that for 5 years.
Yeah, but it's like the sad irony that it's like, we really do give off the best impressions of ourselves and we're not self-conscious, but it's very hard to achieve that. Yeah, it's hard to achieve that when you are actually when it feels like there's stakes to a situation.
That's right.
But so everybody just pretend the world is your gay best friend, unless you are gay, and then it's your straight best friend. Unless you're bi, and then you are shit out of luck. Sorry.
Oh my God. All right. Well, folks, listen. That is where we usually end the episode. Victoria says something slightly off color and we cut her off. And that is what we do here at Oh, Mr. Sheffield, a podcast about the nanny. If you liked the show, please go and talk about it on Apple Podcasts. Leave it a 5-star review. Write about how great it is. And then that helps other people find the show, which is wonderful. If you want to find us on social media, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Oh Mr. Chef Pod with 2 F's. And no, that's the end of my announcements. That's it. You're all free to go, and don't forget to do the reading tonight. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for class. All right, have a week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
The Flashing Girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.